Real quick, real simple. We got 5 backpacking tips and tricks that should help out any level backpacker. Let's dive in. When it comes to buying a new backpack for most of us, we tend to go with smaller backpacks. As we upgrade gear, gear is inevitably getting lighter, it packs down smaller. And we don't need the 70 to 80 liter backpacks that a lot of us started our backpacking journey with. So we go to a smaller backpack. But then kind of comes the question, will all my gear fit in a smaller backpack? Very, very easy solution to figure that out. And no, it's not the obvious, just take all your gear to a store and put it in a backpack, because like that's embarrassing. I mean, I've seen people do it and it's weird. I've had people suggest that I do it. I can't do it. I'm not that guy. It's a little bit too weird for me. I went to a 40 liter backpack this summer to make sure all my gear was gonna fit before getting said backpack. I went to my pantry and I got myself a 45 liter trash bag out of my pantry. I opened it up, I put all my gear inside, and it gave me a really, really good idea if all my gear was going to fit. So if you're looking at going to a smaller backpack, but you're unsure if your gear is going to fit, if you're ordering online and you're ordering one of those custom ultralight backpacks and you're not sure if your gear is going to fit, grab a trash bag out of your pantry, throw your gear inside there. Obviously don't throw your gear out. You're gonna wanna keep your backpacking gear. This is just a test, just to make sure your gear's gonna fit. Don't throw your gear in the garbage. But that's how you do it. For tip number 2, we're gonna dive into the age-old question of how much toilet paper to bring on your next backpacking trip. Now, the answer is not this. This is never the answer. You are never ever going to need a full roll of toilet paper. Even if you go out on a 7-day backpacking trip, full roll of toilet paper, overkill, way overkill. I mean, if you want to, cool, but it eats up a whack of space in your backpack. It's just overly redundant. You're not gonna need that much. So I'm gonna dive into my poop kit real quick and kind of show you guys what I do to get my toilet paper portioned out for myself out on trail. For my toilet paper, all I do is I go to the roll I have in my house and I just start pulling and rolling, Usually I'll do this while I'm going, that teepee's rolled pretty tightly. It's 2-ply, not 1-ply. I treat myself out there. But yeah, a little roll like that will get me about 5 days on a backpacking trip. This is something you're probably gonna have to play around with and kind of figure out for yourself. But to me, that's the easiest, cheapest, most efficient way to get, your teepee out on trail and you're not packing the whole freaking roll. Tip number 3 is primarily going to be for the hammock campers out there, but it is going to work out for tent campers as well. When you're picking a spot to hang your hammock, obviously you're going to want to find, trees with the right spacing between to get your proper hang angles and that kind of thing. Also take into account which way the wind is blowing. You want wind coming at you and hitting the side of your tarp. You don't want wind whipping through the head and foot end of your tarp. That is the absolute worst thing that will happen to you when you're out hammock camping, is getting a cold wind ripping through underneath you. It pierces right between your insulation and yourself. Now obviously this is where having a tarp with doors comes in really handy, just having those 2 extra flaps to close off on the end, because it's not just the wind that could be a factor too. If it is raining at all, that wind is going to push the rain underneath your tarp and all your stuff is going to be soaked and you're going to be absolutely miserable. Now, for me currently up here in Canada, we are pretty much in the full-blown winter effect right now. I got about a foot of snow the other day. It's been almost 0 Fahrenheit the past week. Like I said, winter is in effect, and winter camping and cold weather camping is taking over. What I'm seeing more often than not, the colder air outside is affecting people's faces, and your face is not used to air that is that cold at the time. So what they're doing is pulling themselves completely into their sleeping bag or into their quilt, pulling it right up over their head, sealing it off, and feeling like, oh, I'm going to be that much warmer because I'm not going to have that cold air on my face keeping me up. Well, initially this may make you feel warmer. This is eventually going to make you feel colder in the long run. Because as we're exhaling, we've got moisture in our breath, and that is getting into the fibers and whatever insulating you in your sleeping bag. Usually it's down. It's not going to perform as well when it's wet. Even synthetic insulations do not perform as well when they're wet. So you're reducing the insulative property of your sleeping bag or your top quilt by, burying your head underneath and breathing into it. A much better solution, get yourself something like a balaclava or a face mask. Have something over your face that you can breathe out of that's going to capture the moisture. If you don't have a face mask or a balaclava, even just using a buff. I always carry one of these merino buffs with me on a winter backpacking trip. And at night, that's what I do. I take it around my neck and I just pull it up over my face. So it kind of sits just like that. And I just breathe through that. And that helps manage a lot of the moisture inside my beer. Now, tip number 5 is something a little different. This is not something I usually talk about, but we're going to talk backcountry food a little bit. And for me, backcountry food is almost always dehydrated meals. I don't like bringing fresh food. I don't really like cooking when I'm out there in the backcountry, but it is entirely possible. Even for multi-day backpacking trips, it is entirely possible to bring yourself fresh food out in the backcountry. It does just take a little bit more prep time. My good friend Mark does this on all of his backpacking trips. He always carries a gourmet meal almost every single night. And like I said, it takes a lot of prep time. What he does is he has pre-cooked meals at home. So he portions everything out for how much he would eat for a dinner, vacuum seals it, freezes it, and then he carries it frozen on his backpacking trip, and he's got a little insulative bag inside his food bag to help keep all his frozen portions cold. And he just, he kind of staggers it the way it's packed inside his little clump of frozen meals there. He kind of staggers it so, as he's pulling things off, kind of like the next meal he's going to be eating is like the next one that's kind of on the outside of the clump, if that's making sense. And when it comes to cooking food like this, he's either got a little miniature frying pan that he carries with him, or he'll just throw the vacuum seal bag inside a pot of hot water and just kind of do it sous vide style. If you're a foodie and you're looking at getting into backpacking and you're thinking, I can't do dehydrated food, it is entirely possible to bring, really good, nice, healthy, fresh food with you out on any backpacking trip like I just described. Now, if you are looking for more backpacking tips and tricks, you are in luck, because I have a whack of videos on that very subject. I'll pop a couple videos here and here for you guys to check out when you're done with this one. I'm sure you'll find something in there that you'll enjoy. As always, I am Maddie. Thank you so dang much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. That's right, that's Connor up there. Go Oilers, go, baby!